Your baby has been born. Labour is over, the cord has been cut, the placenta delivered, and you've held your baby for the first time. You may be feeling exhausted and drained, but you have the satisfaction of having just achieved something unique. It's unusual for your birth attendants to do much with your baby at this stage, apart from possibly weighing him and wrapping him up to keep him warm. He doesn't actually need to be washed at this stage, although many hospitals may do so. You can say if you'd prefer them not to. The first half an hour after birth is generally considered the best time to offer your baby a breastfeed. You and your baby may feel ready, or you may still be trying to recover from the idea that you've actually got through labour and that you are safe. The first feed is very important. Research shows that feeding within the first hour increases the baby's chance of successful breastfeeding later. And in some hospitals, your baby's first feed may be delayed by him or her being weighed, you being stitched or cleaned up, or you might even be offered a cup of tea. Your baby's often given to your partner to hold, and although he may be dazzled by this new arrival, he is definitely not equipped to breastfeed. During all of this, the baby could be missing the ideal moment to put that natural feeding reflex into action. You might want to tell your midwife beforehand that you'd like to offer the baby to the breast shortly after birth.
This is lovely and sweet. Trust me, this is nice.
One of the first things he did after peeing all over the midwife was go, and so they gave him to me, and he had a feed for 45 minutes, which was pretty incredible. It stuck to water, and that's thanks to him, not me. He knew exactly what to do and where to go.
Soon after you'll move to the postnatal ward, your partner may well go home. Your baby may be asleep, but you may feel sleep is the last thing on your mind. You may just lie there and reflect on it all for a time, perhaps sleeping when tiredness gets the better of you. Or you may just feel a sense of anticlimax.
And I was breastfed very well.
First of all, I couldn't believe that we actually had a little baby after all this time. She just looked so tiny, and she felt incredibly light, and therefore I felt she was incredibly fragile. But I found out that she had a good pair of lungs on her, and in the first few days in the hospital, she actually managed to keep everybody awake in the ward, wake up all the babies. So she had truly, well and truly had come into the world.
A paediatrician or GP will look over your baby at this stage to make sure everything is okay. Now, the check takes about 10 minutes. There's everything from a simple finger and toe count through to listening to the heart and checking that baby's hips are okay. Now, if you've not seen many newborn babies, it can be a bit of a shock. And a lot of people expect what really is a bouncing 4-month-old to arrive with filled-out chubby cheeks and massive hair.
I'm just going to have a routine.
Some babies are born with swellings on their heads from delivery. These usually disappear in a few days. Others are covered in vernix, the creamy-coloured substance which keeps the baby's skin protected while it's in the womb. Some are born with lanugo, or body hair like down, on the back, arms and forehead. This rubs off after a while and is perfectly normal. New babies tend to come up in all sorts of rashes or spots. These do not normally mean anything, but you can ask if you're not sure.
He's been asleep for a while, is he?
If there's anything you see that you're worried about, you can ask your midwife or paediatrician. He or she can reassure you that birthmarks are likely to fade and bruises from forceps will go.
Just check his hips, which he probably won't like. No problem.
Baby sex organs may be larger or smaller than you imagined. Their hands and feet may be a little blue for some hours afterwards, but if they're very blue, it's best to ask your midwife to have a look.
He looks fine.
Lochia is the name given to vaginal bleeding, which comes from the placental site in your uterus. For the first 24 or 48 hours, the bleeding can be quite heavy, and at first a midwife will check your pad to make sure the bleeding is normal. It's usual to pass small clots of blood which can look like bits of liver. Gradually the colour of the loss will fade from red to pale pink, but if you're not sure if your bleeding is normal, you can ask. You'll probably need large maternity pads to cope with the loss in the first day or two, and bleeding may last for as long as 6 weeks. Occasionally a baby will need to go into special care or a neonatal unit. Babies may require special care for a number of reasons. Some are premature, others small for dates. Some may have severe jaundice or physical handicaps. Very small or preterm babies will need constant, careful monitoring to check their heart rate, breathing, blood pressure and temperature. There is support around for parents at this stage, both from the hospital and specialist organisations which have dealt with such matters before. Parents are encouraged to visit whenever they want, and normally the policy of these units is open all hours. The more involved with your baby you can be from the beginning, the easier it will be to establish a good relationship once you're all together at home. After all the excitement, the father often returns to an empty house. This can be a strange time for him, and there may be little in the way of support.
Cheers, mate.
Coming back to the empty house, I was just thinking about who I should tell and getting things together that Yasmin had asked for and trying to think about what needed to be done in the house and really just trying to prepare things, Mom? I think, for when mother and child came home. And we had a list of who we would phone, and I just went through that list and phoned them all up when I got home, I think. And then I think I went to sleep because I was shattered as well.
Yeah, oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's got blue eyes. Yeah, I know.
Absolutely amazing. I was just walking on air. Still absolutely incredible. Spent about 3 hours on the telephone. Don't know what the phone bill's going to be, but I spoke to everyone I could think of. Oh, it didn't bother me I knew that they were in safe hands. I just felt good, and I came home and I had a couple of beers. I hadn't slept for 24 hours. Invited one of my neighbours in and nattered about babies all night, which is something I never saw myself doing.
Bringing your baby home for the first time can be exciting, though sometimes a little daunting. You may worry about how you'll cope now that the comfort and security of the hospital has been left behind.
We're taking somewhere warm.
Yeah.
You may not feel confident about looking after your baby yourself, or you may feel fine about it. One thing which can be extremely helpful when you go home is to have somebody there to support you and help with the chores and housework. Possibly someone in addition to your partner. Women usually get back on their feet much quicker if they put everything else on the back burner and concentrate on themselves and their baby.
Hey.
Where's Samantha?
Bringing the baby back, it was a bit scary, I suppose, because you'd been with all these professionals who knew what they were doing and had been helping you and telling you what the baby wanted and what you should do to keep the baby happy and things like that. And when you come back, then you're on your own, and it wasn't too bad, but I think we were a bit apprehensive, or I was a bit apprehensive, certainly.
One thing we did feel, not long after he'd arrived in the world, was, help, we've got a baby, we're beginners, and they've left us with this baby.
Yeah, when you come back from hospital, it's really funny because I was in hospital about 3 days and you feel quite confident. I mean, I was lucky that I hadn't had a traumatic birth and there was no medical complications or anything like that, and he was feeding reasonably well. So he came home, but it really hit me just coming in with him in the car seat. What have I done? You know, we're on our own with this tiny little baby and not really knowing what's going to happen. And I sort of thought, you know, you stupid fool, how could you be so confident, you know? The first week we thought we just wanted to be on our own to just sort of adjust.
If you've had stitches because of a tear or episiotomy, you may be feeling very sore and uncomfortable for several days. It should begin to settle down in a few days, and any bruising will soon fade. You might find it helps to ease any pain by lying down on one side to breastfeed. Walking around can also help the healing process. It is important to avoid sitting still for long periods. If you're still experiencing a lot of pain or discomfort after about a week, You can talk to your midwife or doctor.
Your community midwife will visit you for the first 10 days or longer if necessary. She'll check that you're generally well, and if you've had stitches in your perineum, she'll check that it's healing properly. It can be very helpful at this stage to tell her if there are any problems. If you're breastfeeding, she may ask how your breasts and nipples are.
It hurts a bit, but you know, it's
She'll keep a check on both you and your baby, and can help a lot, so don't be afraid to ask her about anything that's bothering you.
I was a bit worried about his cord.
Okay.
Because it just sort of, it's a bit of blood inside it, and it sort of, it fell off quite soon, so I was a bit worried, you know.
Okay, well, what we could do is have a look at him in a little while.
Yeah.
After I've actually checked you over, I'll check him over.
I was relieved to be home because I was in comfortable surroundings for me, and I actually stayed in hospital for about 4 days. So that gave me the opportunity to ask any questions of the midwives and staff there when I was there, and that made me feel more relaxed about bringing Megan home. I also knew that the midwives would be coming round every day for the next so many days, so I wasn't so scared about bringing Megan home. I was glad to have her home and with us.
The Guthrie test involves taking blood from your baby's heel. It's performed on the 6th day after birth to find out if your baby is suffering from a disorder which, if not caught early, can cause mental retardation. The disorder is controlled by a special diet. Many babies develop jaundice at about 3 days, so keep an eye open for discoloration of the skin that looks like a nice tan. Jaundice that clears up in a week or so is not a cause for concern.